Hey, what's up guys? It's Eklo here. Welcome on my channel. Welcome back if you already know me. Alright, so today's video is about the optimization of your laptop. For example, if your laptop is running too hot and you would like to reduce the temperatures or prevent overheating, make some overclock, adjust the performance as well. I'm going to discuss about that and show you how you can do it from the download of the software to the configuration and everything. Okay, so before we start, just remind that I can't be responsible for anything that could happen to your laptop. You have to do that by your own responsibility. You should have no trouble, but unlucky things happen, so yeah. But if you follow my guide, everything should be okay and you should see some improvement. So let's go. Alright, so to start we're gonna need four software. Which I got here. It is HWMonitor, Throttlestop, MS Afterburner, and Prime 95. So I'm going to show you how you can download these very easily. Alright, so once you've downloaded all the software, you should have something like this in your download file. I recommend you to create a folder and put them inside, and then you just have to extract the archive and just install the software to get the installers right there. So before we start, just I'm using the Alienware M17 R3, which is my main laptop. So it has an internal software which allow me to control my fan settings, some overclock, and yeah. So if you have the same laptop than me, I advise you to put in performance mode so it will not struggle the performances. If you have like a Strix or any gaming laptop, then you should have a provided software which allow you to choose the thermal profile or to set the fan speed at a certain level. So I recommend you to use the performance mode, something which cool your laptop enough before you start this guide. Alright. So the first software is going to be HWMonitor. We are going to use this software to see the CPU temperatures, the usage, the clock, and there's other stuff that you can see, for example the battery capacity and the battery loss, all of these things. So then we're going to use Throttlestop and Prime 95 for the Undervolt. Throttlestop is a software that prevents your CPU from throttling. If you don't know what is CPU throttle, it's let's say a CPU is designed to run at a certain clock frequency, and in my case it's the i7 750H. So this CPU is designed to run with a turbo frequency of 4.3 GHz on the 6 cores, and with the turbo activated, of course. Without turbo it's 2.6 GHz, but yeah, let's say for any common person it's gonna be 4.3 GHz. And when the temperature is too high, for example you're playing a high demanding game like Call of Duty, or you are rendering a video, then it's going to push your CPU at the maximum of its performances, and you're going to hit maybe 100 degrees, maybe 90 degrees, a very high temperature. And so to prevent the CPU failure, then the CPU will just reduce this clock speed to reduce the power consumed and so reduce the temperature. The problem with that is when it reduces its clock speed, it's gonna reduce the performances too, and this is why when you're playing a game and the CPU runs too hot, then you have a drop of FPS. It's just because the CPU reached a certain temperature that is too high, and it has just to lower its frequency, and it's then lower your frame rate. So this is CPU throttling. So to prevent this, there's two things we can do in Throttlestop right there. You're gonna go in Fiverr here, and the first thing is gonna be Undervolt. So by undervolting, we are just gonna give less power to the CPU, and it should reduce a little bit the heat. But we're limited with this kind of method. So, but just let's say you're gonna go in CPU core right here, check underclock adjustable voltage, and you're gonna play with the offset voltage. I'll just give you a warning in there. If you don't know the software, then don't go beyond my my guide. Just follow what I'm doing and be careful, because if you mess up with this, you can fry your CPU or cause damage to it. So just follow what I'm doing and don't go beyond if you don't know. So in the offset voltage, you're gonna set minus 100 millivolts. This is a safe value for all Intel CPU from the 6th gen to now, and maybe for the next year Gen 2. So minus 100 millivolts is safe for the CPU core. Don't go in the positive way here, just stay in minus, alright, or you will fry your CPU. Then you click apply, and you're gonna do it CPU cache, and you're gonna do the same thing, unlock adjustable voltage, and you're gonna go to minus 100 with the offset voltage, and you click apply, okay, and then you turn on. Okay, so the undervolt is set up. So now we're gonna go in Prime 95. We're gonna launch the software and use small FFT to stress the CPU at maximum power and heat, and we're gonna check the temperatures in HWMonitor. So as you can see, the CPU usage cranked up until 100% on all cores and thread. We have a limit of 4.3 gigahertz here, which is the default settings, and our temperature is about 77 degrees. So I just want to say that in my case, my laptop is repasted with liquid metal, so it means that I may have somewhere between 10 to 20 degrees maybe lower than what you should have on a stock device. So if here you got 90 or 100 degrees, that's okay. That may be okay. Okay, so we're gonna stop that. Prime 95, test, exit, and you see temperatures are just going down. Alright. Now, depending on which temperature you have in there, in your maximum temperature on this test, for example, if you had like 95 or 100 degrees and you want to lower this temperature, you're gonna go in Throttlestop. We're gonna go in Fiverr again, and now we're gonna play with the ratio, the turbo ratio limits. So we are gonna manually reduce the core clock frequency, the CPU frequency, so that it doesn't have to automatically reduce this and so create some performance drop and overheating. So by reducing this frequency, we are going to reduce slightly the performances, of course, but we are going to reduce a lot the emitted temperature of the CPU. So I recommend you to if you have this CPU or whatever, it depends of the CPU you have, of course. For the i7 10750H, I recommend you to set like 3.6 GHz, 36 on whole cores. If you don't have your laptop repasted with liquid metal or something, if you have a stock laptop, I just recommend you to do that settings. You click apply, and you see now it's gonna be capped, limited at 3.6 gigahertz. I'm just gonna reset the values of the maximum and minimum, and click OK, and now we're gonna launch Prime 95 again, and we're gonna see the impact on the temperatures. So small FFT, OK, and here you see the temperatures are gonna go up again, but now we are under the 60 degrees, and before at default settings we were above 80 degrees, and in your case it might be 100 degrees, so now you should be somewhere around 80 degrees. So you just want 15 to 20 degrees by just reducing the performance by, let's say, 10 or 15%, which is completely okay. So now it depends on you, on which kind of temperature you want on your laptop. If it changes the noise, fan or something, the only thing you have to do is play with these. Just be careful, just know your CPU capability. It depends on the range of your CPU, so check it. For example, to check that, I'm going on Intel, and I'm just gonna type my CPU model in there. I'm gonna go on hawkintel.com, which is the trusted site, and here you can see the specification. The number of cores is 6, and the base frequency is 2.6 GHz. So yeah, basically do not go under the base frequency, so in this case 2.6 GHz, and that should be okay. But in this case, for the i7 10750H, or I guess even for all the CPUs that go up to 5 GHz, you can set that at 3.6 and it's gonna have a decent temperatures here. And again, if you want to have your own settings, just play with it, play 37, launch Prime 95 again, see the temperatures, and once you're satisfied with the temperatures, then you can just apply and save your settings. And of course, each time you change the setting, just exit the software and launch it again. In my case, I have a pretty good cooling with the liquid metal, so I can set the default settings here, and I'm not gonna throttle. Alright. Now there's something else you need to know, because Throttlestop is a software that is blocked by Riot Vanguard. If you play Valorant, then you know that this software, this anti-cheat software, is very boring because it blocks a lot of peripheral drivers and something. And even if you go in Throttlestop options and you check the start minimized and minimize and close, well, the software is going to start, but it's going to block the the daemon behind, and so it's not going to work. Your undervolt and your changes here are not going to work because Valorant Vanguard just blocked it. So to prevent that, you're going to go in Task Scheduler. In French. My computer is in French, so it's this one. And what you're going to do is create a new task. And okay, mine is already created, so I'm going to show you. Create a new task. You're going to name it Throttlestop in general. You're going to check this one, execute only if the user is connected. And this one is very important, execute with the maximal authorization. So administrator or something, you have to check that, the maximum authorization. Then you're going to go in triggers. The trigger will be at session login, alright, for all users. Something also important is to check repeat the task every 1 hour, alright, repeat the task every 1 hour for an infinite time, okay, repeat every 1 hour infinite, activate, of course, at session login, okay. Now the action will be to start a program, so now you will select the Throttlestop exe. So you go in the folder that you've installed Throttlestop. So I recommend you after this, while you're doing this, is to close Throttlestop and you just move the folder into program file, so you won't delete it if you cleaning your desktop or your downloads settings, so just move it to program files, you select that, and then you click OK. The condition, verify that everything is not uncheck. Parameters, you check this, authorize the execution, the on-demand execution task. You check the stop the task if it's been executed for more than 3 days, and you're gonna check the task to force the task to stop if it doesn't stop on demand. Then you're gonna click OK, and it should bypass the Valorant problem. Alright, so that's okay for the CPU. Now we're gonna move to the GPU. We're gonna use MSI Afterburner. So this one is not blocked by Valorant, so you can start with Windows and start minimized. That should be okay. We're gonna use this to overclock the GPU. So again, you can use this tutorial and this guide for any NVIDIA GPU. This should work for 1660 Ti, 2060, 2070, 2070 Super, 2080, right? It should work for everything. As for the undervolt in the CPU, I'm gonna give you a safe overclocking value here for the core clock. But of course, we are talking about overclocking the GPU because most of the time on laptops the GPU is running cooler than the CPU. For example, on my laptop the GPU is running like 10 to 15 degrees cooler, so I can overclock it, of course. But before overclocking it, you may want to know at which temperature your CPU is running while you're playing. So to do so, you can go on settings, then control, and what you're going to do here is check the parameters that you want to see displayed while you're playing. So I want to see the temperatures of my first GPU, which is the RTX 2070 Super. So be sure that the it's checked in black here. Then you're gonna go on the first line and check it, display on screen, and here you can check this one, override the group name if you want to rename it. In my case, I rename it with the RTX 2070 Super because it's the 2070 Super. Then you want to check the usage of the GPU. You check this on-screen display. Again, you change the name. Gonna do the same thing for the usage of the video memory, on screen checked, and you can change the name in VRAM. Same thing for the clock frequency. If you want to see the clock frequency, then you're gonna check it, change the name, and you're gonna do the same thing for the CPU here. You're gonna check it, check on screen display, change the group name for the name of your CPU if you want it, and you can see the global usage of your CPU too. Do the same thing, same for the memory, the RAM, and finally you can do the same for the FPS to display the FPS. And if you want to see average FPS and 1% low FPS here, you just have to check these, check on screen display, change the graphic for the group name in FPS average or the 1% low FPS. But to do these two right here, they are measured on a range. You need to have a certain range of FPS, and to do so you need to specify a start point of measurement and an end point of measurement. And to do so, of course, you're going to click apply. You're going to then go in benchmark, and you're going to specify a start key to record this average FPS, and an end key to stop recording. So in my case, I put this control plus the double dots, and control plus this exclamation point here. So you choose the value, the keys that you want, and then you click apply. Then what I recommend you from now is, if you didn't know the temperature of your CPU, just run your favorite games or high demanding games like Call of Duty Modern Warfare or Cold War, Apex Legends, anything that's gonna, you know, a triple AAA game that consumes a lot, just run this game and see what's the temperature of your GPU. If your GPU is running under 80 degrees, then that's okay. I would say it should be okay, but it's still hot. And if it's cooler than this, then that's great to overclock. But in any case, you should be able to overclock from factory without creating more heat. So to do so, you go on MSI Afterburner and you're gonna just slide this core clock offset to plus 100 and let's say 120 megahertz offset is a safe value, I would say, for any type of GPU. So beginning from there, you're gonna set plus 120 on the core clock. You're gonna apply and you're gonna launch simply your favorite games, well, high demanding games like I said, Call of Duty or Apex Legends or something, and you're gonna see if it's stable or not. So I mean, if the game crashes or it doesn't want to start, it means that this overclock is too high. So you have to lower it a little bit. Let's just, for example, if it crashes at 100 at plus 120, just lower it to plus 100, apply, and then launch your game again and play a couple of games. And if it's running well, then it means that your overclock is stable. Then if you try with 120 and your game is running well, then you can just push up a little bit to 140, apply, launch your game. If it's running well, then let's say you can push a little bit to 150, and then you play your games. Okay, and you're going up like that until I would say the limit is 180. I'm not sure you're gonna have a stable thing with plus 180 megahertz, but you can try. And just to warn you, if your game is crashing, and let's say after it crashes then there is some bug, and even if you reset the default value, it doesn't want to reload your game or let you play the game correctly, then what you have to do is to reinstall all your drivers. I know it's a bit boring, but you know, sometimes unlucky things happens, and yeah, you have to do that, but it's easy to fix. The only thing you have to do is just uninstall the MSI Afterburner and just uninstall your NVIDIA driver and reinstall the NVIDIA driver behind, and then just go back to the safe value of overclock you had before that. And you can do the same thing with the memory clock here. You can undervolt it. You can start from 150 megahertz. Okay, you apply, then you play your game too. If it's stable, then you keep going up. This one, for the memory clock, you can go up by, let's say, 50 megahertz. You apply, you play your game, it's okay, then you go up. Okay, and I would say a limit to that is plus 400 megahertz to plus 500. In my case, for the RTX 2070 Super, my stable overclock for all game is plus 125, and I got plus 250 megahertz for the memory. So that's my safe overclock. But again, it may not be the case for you, so you have to play with it a little bit. Alright, so now this is the settings for the common laptop. Now what if your GPU is overheating, so it's running too hot and you just want to reduce its temperature? Well, this is possible by using, instead of overclocking, we're gonna undervolt and underclock the GPU. So reset the default values, and to do so, what you're gonna do is reducing the clock the core clock. The memory clock won't change, won't be significant, so just reduce the core clock here, let's say by 100 megahertz, applied it, and what you're gonna want to see here is the little graph here near the core clock, and as you can see there is this curve right here which shows the GPU core clock frequency depending on the voltage applied. So at a certain point here, to have, for example, 1.86 gigahertz, 1860 megahertz, I need to put 1.131 volt. So by applying minus 100 megahertz on the core clock, I've reduced the default curve here to this one with the cube, but the voltage hasn't changed. So as you can see, we only drop the curve in the, you know, downward like this. For example, for this point right here and this point just above on the original curve, that was the same voltage, but we lowered the frequency. So by lowering the frequency, we should have lowered the voltage too. So to do so, what we're gonna do is take the higher point in frequency here. So the highest point is 1.86 gigahertz, and we're gonna lower the voltage by making start the flat curve here at this value 1.86. this one again, we're gonna up 1.86. so by doing this, we are reducing the required voltage to attain the 1.86 gigahertz. We're going to do that for a couple of points until we've reduced the starting voltage for this specific frequency, let's say for 50 to 100 millivolts. So we've been going from 1.1 volt, and we're gonna go down to, say, 1.50. So I'm gonna just move all of these here again, here again, and the last one. Okay, so now instead of starting at 1.1 volts here, this little curve here, we're gonna start here, which means that we're gonna have the same frequency than before, but with a lower voltage here. So we're just gonna close this, apply, and now what you want to do is launch your game again and see if your temperature has gone down a little bit, and if you're satisfied with it. If you're not satisfied with it, then just what you want to do is reduce again. You can underclock again, reduce the frequency until you're satisfied with it. It depends on your will, alright? But don't go below a certain point. I really suggest you to don't go over to minus 250, because you're gonna reach a certain limit. And same thing here, I think the limit will be around 900 here. If you flatten the curve until 900, then it's gonna automatically up again the voltage. So yeah, you see here, we just I just dropped the core clock. I set it to minus 200, and it just make this gap again here. So because I just go too far. So yeah, and of course, if you launch your game and there is some freeze or the game crash, it means that you didn't put enough voltages for the frequency you've chosen. So if it's the case, then you have to lower a little bit. For example, let's say you got minus 100 here, you set, like I said before, all this was flattened and your game crashes, then there's two solutions. The first one is then you just up the cube a little bit to make, you know, the flattened part start at a higher voltage, or you reduce a little bit more the core clock, and of course you reflatten the curve again. You can use the arrow keys to adjust the amount here, because with the mouse it's not easy, so I really recommend you to use the arrow keys. And then you launch the game again, and you know, that's the same thing. If it's stable, if you can play your game and it doesn't crash, then it means that it's okay. If not, then you just have to play again with it. You know, just lower it a little bit, reflatten the curve, and that's okay until you find your desired temperatures and performances. Because doing this, reducing the core clock, will for sure reduce your performances. You can lose, for example, with this, you're gonna lose, well, let's say maybe 15 to 20 FPS on your game. So it all depends on what you want. All right, so that's it for the. All right, and once you find your stable value, so in my case that was that. Once you find that, you're gonna click the apply button. Of course, you're gonna click this saving button right there, and you're gonna choose the profile where you want to save all the things. So mine was on 1, I click 1, and now it's saved on 1. So each time I'm gonna press 1, I'm gonna find back the stable value I found. So for example, you know, there's the default. Each time you press the default, it's gonna set everything back to 0. Your stable value will be on one profile, and I recommend you to use another one for the test. For example, if you want to push the limits, then you're gonna save your, you know, all the profile here. And once you've done that, don't forget to check the start with Windows, start minimized, and click this red button here, so it will apply the overclock at the login session. Alright, so I just put a picture here with some troubleshoot that you may encounter by doing those steps with the solution to fix that. So I let it here. If you have this kind of issue, then this might help. Alright, so these solutions are based on my own experience. I don't know everything, so if you have any other issues, so maybe let in the comment. We'll try to see, or well, Google is your best friend and you'll probably find an answer on the internet. On my laptop, the M17 R3, it's a 300Hz laptop which has not really great colors from factory. So what I've done, the 300Hz panel is connected directly to my NVIDIA GPU. So if, for example, if your screen is as Optimus, if you don't know what it is, it's the technology to help the laptop to get more battery by running on the integrated GPU, then you will not have to open the NVIDIA control panel, but you have to use the, I don't know if I got that here, no, it's the Intel graphics, you know, command center or something, where you can choose here the colors and use a different profile. So in my case, I just changed the settings here to get a better look on my screen. Of course, again, it depends on everyone. Personally, I prefer this new look than the default one. So you can play with the numeric, you know, things are there that's gonna just change the color. In my case, I've set that to 70%. The contrast here is the same. It was by default at 50. I set that to 65, and that's okay. These two changes here just gave me more, you know, a more vivid picture, and this is better in this way. Alright, and last but not least, I just want to show you some thing to increase your laptop speaker quality. So maybe you already know that, but most of laptops uses the Realtek controller for the audio. So on the recent laptop you have the Realtek audio console, which is a software control in there, so you can go into speakers and you can set your own settings for your speakers. This definitely increases the quality of speakers, and most of the time during reviews the reviewers doesn't speak about that, and this change from nothing to everything the quality of speakers. And in my case, for the Alienware M17 R3, this is changing everything. So yeah, make sure you check that software. And if you have a gaming laptop, then you probably have some gaming proprietary tool software that is provided with it. And for example, in this Alienware Command Center, I have a profile right there, some profile right where you can choose between different specific profile. And in this case, the Alienware Audio is the best one for sound quality and immersion. So check this out if you got this kind of software on your laptop. So that's it for the end, and I think that's okay too for this optimization here. So yeah, basically in my case the laptop was replaced with liquid metal, and this liquid metal repaste allow me to run the laptop at its maximum performances without throttling and without reaching the 85 degrees maximum. So it's pretty nice because all my cores are all the time running at the maximum turbo frequency, which is 4.3 gigahertz on the 6 cores. Alright, so I think that's it for this video. I think this helped you to optimize your laptop. I know it may be a little bit long if you're still here, but yeah, it's something that if you want to do that, you really need to take the time to understand how it works. And this video might not be enough, so go on the internet, check things, watch reviews, watch tutorials, watch anything that can help you to understand what's happening, what's the throttling exactly, how does it work. Because if you don't understand what you're doing, then you don't understand why it crashes, why you have problem, why your FPS are dropping. And it's really important to understand what is happening. Yeah. So I can tell you, I could have spent like 1 hour to explain all that, but that's not the point. So I hope this tutorial helped you, and if this is the case, just let me know. If you liked it, drop a like and maybe consider to subscribe to the channel. Alright, that's it for me, and I'll see you next time.